And here with us is the New York Times bestselling author of The Lean Startup, Ries. We are so happy to have you here and honored and pleased to be sharing this space with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So first of all, I wanted to ask you, while you were speaking, one of our laureate students tweeted this: "You can disrupt business if you don't disrupt yourself." And I would love to link it with something that you said, and it was, startups are experiments. So we as students, how can we apply this lean startup strategy? How can we ourselves be the experiment?
Well, yeah, every startup is an experiment. The thing that makes it hard is we don't know it. When I was in college, I did an experiment. I did a startup. It was a total failure. We died with the dot-com bubble bursting, and it was a horribly painful experience. But at the time, I thought my life was over, and I took it hard. But in retrospect, it was a really good learning experience, and I'm glad that I did it. I just wish I'd been a little bit smarter about how I did it. And I think that if I was a student today, I would really be thinking about how can I use the freedom that being a student offers to run experiments in a time in my life where the consequences of failure, they may seem dire, but they're really not. And I think there are ways to do that both big and small. I mean, certainly by starting a company, but I think there are a lot of ways to do something that's, not completely starting a company, but doing something more entrepreneurial in an activity, in a group, in a community, where you really take the time to say, okay, I think if I work hard at this outcome could happen. You try it, and then see if that outcome really does happen. Because as students, so often we get so focused on do what the teacher says, you get a good grade. We forget that that's not the real world, where we have to be accountable not just for doing what we were told, but actually driving some specific outcome.
And what would be the advice that you would give to students for overcoming fear? How did you overcome that fear of not doing what others expect?
I don't know. I'm still not good at it. I experience a lot of fear and anxiety whenever I do something different. I think the only advice I have really is that fear is a purely internal experience. So it's actually like we can't control what happens in the outside world, but we can not control but influence how we respond to it. So in retrospect, I wish I had spent more time learning about meditation and kind of internal guidance, to regulate my own emotions and allow myself just to be more reflective and more resilient in the face of these failures, instead of feeling like my own life was the same as what was happening to me on the outside. So that's a realization I only had later, but I think would have been very helpful to me when I was a student.
I absolutely love and agree with what you said, and I think it's important for us to realize the failure at the earliest stage, and it's not like considered as the failure when we look at the overall picture, because that's a stepping stone of what to do better the next time, so that we don't waste a lot of time and resources. So I'm a huge fan, because I started my own startup and also growing with other startups as well. And I think among us entrepreneurs, we have this dying question that we want to ask. So it's important to pivot, right? What is the right measurement to know when is the right time to pivot, change our strategy?
Yeah. So for everybody at Pivot, just as you said, a change in strategy without a change in vision. And I wish your question had an answer, because it would make all of our lives a lot easier. But the truth is, every startup is different. The specific metrics that matter for each business are different. And there's not like a special sign that says, aha, this is the time to pivot. I mean, sometimes your mistakes are so catastrophic, you have no choice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's actually a blessing in disguise. The much harder situations are ones where the results are ambiguous and you have to make do. Now, I think the sign to look for is what we call a moment of diminishing returns. So when you're doing experiments, what you should see, if you're kind of onto something, is each time you make the product better, each iteration that you do, your life gets a little bit better. The metrics are a little bit closer to what you want them to be, and the magnitude of improvement of the metrics is proportional to the magnitude of the improvement in the product. When that's not true, something's wrong. Now, you can't judge that from one experiment, one launch, one ship. It takes some time. But if you've been working, like I was working once on a product where we made the product better every single day for months, and the basic conversion rate of customers didn't change. So at a certain point, you're banging your head against the wall. You're saying, wait a minute, my concept of what makes a product better is fundamentally different than my customers. Then you know it's time to pivot.
Well, Thank you so much for your insight. I think we learned a lot, and we hope that other students and audience watching also will learn. And we think that we're running out of time, but thank you for being here. So if you have any feedback, do follow our social media and hashtag WOBNYC. We'll be back to you soon.
Thank you.